To France now, where a court has sentenced 4 Bulgarians to prison for their involvement in the defacing of a Holocaust memorial in Paris. The case has fueled questions over whether the vandalism was in fact an act of hybrid warfare by Russia aimed at destabilizing France. Hundreds of red hands were sprayed onto the wall of the Righteous in the French capital in May of 2024. Some French Jewish organizations condemned it as an anti-Semitic act, but French intelligence found it to be a case of foreign interference that attempted to exploit existing divisions and further fragment French society. There have been several incidents over the past 2 years that French authorities suspect were directed by Russia. In June, several Jewish sites in Paris were vandalized with green paint, and in September, severed pigs' heads were left outside mosques in the city. A number of Serbian nationals were arrested on suspicion of involvement in those acts. In October of 2023, just weeks after the Hamas attack on Israel, blue stars of David were stenciled onto buildings in the French capital. Police detained 2 Moldovans in connection with that incident and later deported them. Russia has denied any involvement. We're joined now by Kristine Berzina, who spent many years researching hybrid threats. She's the managing director of the German Marshall Fund's Geostrategy North Division. Welcome back to DW. Now, authorities in France believe that Russia has been orchestrating attacks on Jewish and Muslim targets. Why would they do that? What's the ultimate goal here?
Russia is very interested in making our societies seem weak and unattractive for their own population, and also to make our societies, the West, NATO, a less fearsome competitor for Russia itself. And so looking at how they can make daily life more complicated within our societies has been something that Russia is doing and that the Soviet Union did for its duration. This kind of hybrid strategy tries to identify points of cleavage or conflict within our societies and then inflames tensions on both sides, even creating events around which a lot of the big feelings can solidify. And this makes us more angry at each other in society, which means A, our societies look really dysfunctional sitting from Moscow, because Moscow can say, look, in Russia, we are all on one page. We don't dislike each other in the way the West does. And B, it means our political leaders are often very consumed with internal political issues and therefore less able to address what Russia is doing on the global stage.
Yeah. Before we look at the psychological effects of this all, I want to know from you, because you have been following this case also very closely, how strong is the evidence that Russia was in fact involved in these attacks?
The French authorities are confident that there is foreign interference and involvement here, but this isn't the only example. I mean, on the one hand, is this President Putin who is asking particular operatives to make these decisions? I think that's highly unlikely. But there is a network of those who seek to expose weaknesses, to try to attain success through certain kinds of sabotage. And when they are successful, this is a good thing. And so it's more impressing the boss, perhaps, if you can think about an approach to this, as opposed to everything being perfectly directed from the very top. There are other incidents that we have seen that are not only looking at, for example, the Jewish or Muslim issues, like as we see in this case, but you have incidents of sabotage that have happened over recent years and in recent months across Europe, in which there have been incidents of arson that seek to also cause problems. There has been a Molotov cocktail that was thrown into the Occupation Museum in Riga, for example. These are many small incidents, but they all point to an ever-increasing climate of danger and of a greater appetite from the Russian side to cause problems in our societies.
How do these attacks actually work in practice? Because there have been people of all nationalities involved. How does Russia recruit the people who carry these hybrid attacks out?
The internet is an excellent matchmaker. It allows us to order food or clothing. At the same time, it also allows those who wish to find someone who, for often not very big sums of money, are willing to cause a bit of trouble, to find them, to motivate them, and to cause the trouble. Each of the networks are different, and each of the cases are different. But generally speaking, these connections are made on the internet in a way that willing or eager or financially motivated persons are found by and connect to those who are doing something in Russia's interest. And so it isn't again, a permanent network, but instead, I mean, you can think of it as adjacent to a criminal underworld, but in this case, also with geopolitical motivations.
Why have there been so many of these cases in France? What aspects of French politics and society is Russia trying to exploit here?
So we're talking about France right now, but if you look across all of our societies, there are big feelings about culture, about identity, and Russia is trying to expose them and has tried to expose them across all of the countries. Right now, because of the war in Gaza, the feelings between the Muslim populations and Jewish populations in Europe are at a moment of higher tension because you have the conflict in Israel and Gaza. This is something that therefore can be exploited. In the United States, Russia has exploited some of the race relations questions. This also is a point of tension or an issue upon which people feel very emotional and will often move from the internet to the real world. This is why there are protests. Anything that is something that motivates people to get off of their couches and into the streets with protest signs is an issue that Russia is often willing to use for this disruptive purpose. It's not that they're inventing the conflicts or the underlying grievance, but they are looking at this underlying grievance and they're exploiting it to create this disorder, and they're inflaming these tensions in our societies.
Are they succeeding?
To a certain extent, yes. You could say that they are succeeding in making our climates feel less stable. But how much they succeed and how much you can attribute a feeling of unhappiness with domestic politics to Russia, I think that can often be far-fetched. I think they are a contributor to a sense of dissatisfaction. And that is why the countermeasure to it is both being aware of how emotions can be used to hurt us, and also trying to counter issues by finding resilience in our societies, finding points of connection would be a very important response, because we can be manipulated through our underlying unhappiness, and we need to maybe find greater points of connection and happiness to make sure that we are more solid and connected and resilient as societies.
That seems like a very big task, especially with societies that are as polarized as, societies around the world right now. What can European authorities specifically do to prevent this kind of foreign interference, and if it happens, to prevent it from working?
Well, law enforcement is incredibly important, right? So the particular case in France is moving from something that exists only on the internet and actually exists in the physical world. And these are the key points of transformation. Making sure that there is awareness, and of course there is a lot of awareness and a lot of money and energy that is being channeled to understanding what is happening in the internet ecosystem, but making sure that it doesn't cause the problems that it can cause in the physical world is incredibly important, right? So this is the role of law enforcement that is important, but the role of media even to show the fact that we are being manipulated and we need to be more critical in understanding what is going on around us is also very important. There isn't one quick fix. You cannot say, take down the internet and then everything will be fine. That is not a reasonable expectation. And so it is a series of small measures of leaders talking about the need for greater connectivity, for law enforcement to be on top of the kind of threats that exist, for people to be vigilant about suspicious activities in their daily lives. In some ways, this is no different from the kind of thinking that all of our societies developed during a much more heightened terrorism era. The see something, say something. And it's this collective series of actions of education, of awareness, that is going to build that resilience. But again, desiring connections across lines and getting at the source of these grievances, which are often very deep in our societies, is going to be the only and the best long-term fix.
Kristine Berzina from the German Marshall Fund, thank you. Always great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.